Hi, my name is Suchita and I'm a research scholar at Christ University. The title of my research is Pride on the Walls, Representation of Transgender Communities Through Commissioned Graffiti. To introduce my topic, the primary thing that I'm looking at in my study is how graffiti works as a form of representation for transgender communities. I'm particularly looking at commissioned graffiti and graffiti that is created by transgenders for empowering them and also for spreading awareness about them. Graffiti is not something that is unknown to mankind. It is something that has existed. It's a form of visual communication that has existed since the ancient times. So it can be anything from scribbles to fully blown murals. So it has evolved over a period of time, and it has been popularized through different techniques. And today we have artists like Banksy, Shepard Fairey, who have always provided room or a space for political dialogue through their work. So it's not surprising that today there is a lot of graffiti festivals, there's a graffiti museum, and it has become a potent form of expression in today's time. And that also gave rise to something called the commissioned graffiti, which is authorized graffiti, which allows people to collaborate with different organizations in order to create a message that can be sent across to the space in which it is. So one of the primary factors about it is the fact that graffiti is always created in public spaces in order to open a dialogue between the spaces, between the graffiti and the space in which it is in. Um, since I'm looking at the transgender community, it's only fair that I define what transgenders are. So transgenders is a term that is used for individuals whose gender identity, role or expression does not conform to their gender assigned at birth, or anyone who does not fall on either side of the binaries. What is surprising, however, is the fact that transgenders are I'm sorry, it's not surprising that transgenders have been treated really badly in the city spaces or any space that we come to because of the way they look, or because they are usually not considered uh, normal. But however, if you look at the past or if you look at history, transgenders have played an important role in Hindu mythology. They've been revered in Hindu mythology, where they have given space equal to that of gods. And also in during the Mughal era, during the Mughal era, they have been uh, 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 been very close with royalty. That means they have lived royal lives, and they have lived a life of luxury. The downfall of the transgender community in India began in the 18th century because of the Britishers who believed that their presence in a public space is a deviance from the normal, and they brought in the section 377 of IPC, which has evolved and has been debated over years even up till today. So transgender communities were at one point revered, but today they have been treated, assaulted, abused, uh, even in city spaces. So that's what I'm trying to look at. So the city space, I've chosen city space for this particular study is because city spaces are usually considered spaces where the educated class exists or more progressive societies. However, the discrimination against the transgender community even exists in these city spaces. And these public spaces where you can normally see how people fear them or people make fun of them is where graffiti has also been created in order to express or in order to empower or in order to educate the masses and have a dialogue with the community that they live in. So the graffiti that I am looking at for my study is from Aravani Art Project. Aravani Art Project is basically an art collective based project in Bangalore that helps in creating consciousness and well-being through different art forms. So what they do is that they basically collaborate with trans women and they create commission graffiti across spaces. So they have created uh, commission graffiti in corporate spaces. They've created in collaboration with street art festivals, with NGOs, etc. So a lot of commission graffiti has been taking place through them, where they use these walls to spread a message or send a message to the community that they are in. The intention of this project is not to set, is just not to spread awareness about them or how transgender communities survive today, but it's also to empower the community in order to give them more opportunities which otherwise would not have existed. And this is also a major downfall for the transgender community. Because of the lack of opportunities, they tend to resort to exploitation, extortion, or sex work, which further re-emphasizes the stigma that exists because of them. This study is an attempt to reflect the cultural reality of transgender community through understanding the graffiti that is created by the trans women in collaboration with the Arvani Art Project. Um, Again, to re-emphasize on the objective is to understand the significance of graffiti created by trans women in city spaces, and to understand the cultural reality of transgender communities through the analysis of the graffiti chosen. The methodology for this particular research, the paper adopts a qualitative research method where a semiotic analysis of 8 graffiti created by trans women who are in collaboration with the Aravani Art Project in 8 different cities across India. The theoretical framework used for this is Roland Barthes' mythology, or idea of myth, where he believes that everything is not what it seems, and there's a deeper meaning associated with any form of visual or any form of work. The analysis that is derived will be further thematized using a deductive thematic analysis approach to understand if there is, or to identify if there are any dominant themes that exist in the graffiti. The sample design is the universe is the Aravani Art Project graffiti that were created by trans women. And there are a lot of graffiti within the website that were created for corporate spaces as well. So we looked at graffiti that existed in public spaces in these 8 different cities, and that their focus was on transgenders, or they spoke about transgenders. So the sample size is 8 from 8 different cities. The method that is being used is semiotic analysis using Roland Barthes' mythology. The data source is primary data. The classification is a purposive sampling technique. The sampling design, the sample universe for this particular research was the Aravani Art Project website, where they have archived all their projects. And for the purpose of this research, the graffiti that was created by trans women and also spoke about transgender community were chosen, for which purposive sampling technique was used. The sample size was 8 graffiti from 8 different cities within the country, urban cities within the country. These were the 8 graffiti that was analyzed. It was Jaipur, Mumbai, Chennai, Pune, Bangalore, Kochi, Delhi, and Kolkata. Apart from just the idea that they have created in public space, the choice of the public space also played an important role. Like, most of these graffiti were created in spaces where uh, there was a lot of engagement with that. It was possible to have a lot of engagement with their own community as well. For instance, in Mumbai and Kolkata, they chose the red light area where there is a lot of transgenders and sex workers who work there. So it was a place where they came together as a community, and not just spread message about their community, but also try to empower those people as well. So these were the 8 graffiti that were analyzed. They were broken down into individual elements in terms of their signs, and each sign, which was either the colors, the text, the visuals, were analyzed independently, after which they were summarized and put down. And after that, they were further thematized further in order to understand if there is a dominant message that is being sent across through this. some of the common elements that were present in all the 8 graffiti was the style of painting, which is the geometric abstraction. So geometric abstraction is a style of painting which was popularized during the 20th century, and this is an avant-garde style of painting which is non-illusionistic and non-representative in nature. It's considered to be experimental, it's radical and unorthodox. So I think the style of painting in itself was reflective of the kind of persistence that they wanted to bring out, or the kind of message that they wanted to state. The representation of trans women is usually, if you look at the graffiti that was created, most of them are dark skinned with black hair. This is very similar to the portrayal of Aravanis, which goes back to the Hindu mythology. There is a lot of patterns and motifs that are used in the graffiti. I think 6 out of the 8 graffiti had dominant patterns and motifs, either in terms of flowers or stripes or polka dots, etc. This was patterns and motifs are primarily used in art in order to emphasize the focus. So in this case, it was the trans woman, and also to provide harmony to the eye movement as well. Most of these colors that were used were bright color palette, where red being the most common color that was used in these. It was a reoccurring color in all the 8 graffiti, which again indicates the kind of message that they would like to send. So based on the analysis, we derived primary themes, and the names of the graffiti have also been given in terms of the place. We can see that out of the 8 graffiti, 4 of them talk about discrimination, or their basic message that they wanted to emphasize on was to be in a world where they are not discriminated or indiscrimination takes place, right? So they are discriminated not only in terms of how they look, but in terms of their profession, because their lack of opportunities and the kind of fear or stigma that is associated with these people, which uh, which makes the common makes the cisgenders or others uncomfortable to approach them. And because of the lack of opportunities, or because of abuse that they face in workspace or even in the educational institutions, um, they don't have any other option but to resort to uh, uh, extortion or begging or entertainment or prostitution at the end of the day. Um, eh, if you look at 2 out of the 8 graffiti also spoke about validation. So in Jaipur, when the graffiti was created, this was in 2017, when the graffiti was created, they were fighting in order to get ID proofs or any form of valid identity from the government. And that was a struggle because they do not belong to either categories or the gender binaries. And this need to identify or be validated within the society is something that they've been fighting for since uh, a very long time. And apart from the legal system, it is also important to look at how there is a stigma that uh, that does not allow them to be a part of the society. There's a stigma by the others that does not allow them to be a part of the society. There is another graffiti that spoke about security in Kochi, which was basically a personal narrative about this trans woman who uses the public toilet as a space for her to change before she gets on to her sex work in the evenings, and how uh, there is a need, or there is a need to create a safe space for these people, because if their option is uh, if they find comfort in public toilets alone, so that probably says a lot of the society that we stay in. Also, there is one particular graffiti which basically celebrated, or it was more of hope that existed within them, in order to state that they matter too, and in order to give back to a wave about. So it was a graffiti about all the trans women and men who played an important role in fighting for the community. So the 8 graffiti had different messages or major themes that existed. That was discrimination, or validation, security, and also hope and celebration. Despite everything that they face, there is an undercurrent of hope, or they believe that there is hope for change within the society. But more importantly, what I would like to conclude by saying is the fact that a strong legal framework is not alone enough to bring the change within the society, but it's more about the changing the mindset of people around us, the people within the society. A lot of people in India, some of them believe that, their presence is a blessing, while some of them shun them, or abuse them, or walk the other direction when they're walking, because of the kind of narrative that has been told to them. So, but there is a need for us to sensitize individuals, and the sensitization can begin at a very early age and at primary level, because unless there is a change in the mindset of the people, I don't think there would be a probable um, change in the way people perceive them. And the graffiti, just by analyzing eight graffiti, it was enough to understand the kind of needs, the kind of desires, and the condition of transgender communities in city spaces that exist even to this day in modern spaces, metropolitan and cosmopolitan cities that talk about progress, but in certain within but we still continue to marginalize the transgender community, and that would can that can or would stop if there is a change in the mindset of individuals by introducing sensitization programs, apart from just laws that uh, are safeguard the interests of these community spaces. So that's what I would like to conclude with, and thank you.